we're not going to get into beard trimming. That's a whole nother class. Definitely take that at some point because everybody's wearing beards now. From this to lumberjack. And if it ain't shaped right, it's going to totally make you look funny. I don't care how many hipsters have the big furry beards. I just want to go and trim it so bad. I can't stand it. Keep it long. You know, by all means, just get some shape into that stuff. So, back to doing short haircuts. Whether you're going down to the skin or you're going even as short as what he already has right here, you do want to generally find out where that point is, where the head starts to curve, and where your hair is going to continue up to make that straighter, more masculine shape. The easiest way to do that is by taking your comb, a straight comb, straight. Place it right above their ears. I'm doing this on both sides so everybody can kind of see this. And just press it against it right on the bottom so you have a straight edge. You can already see kind of what I'm talking about in the picture there, where his head starts to leave the comb. You can feel it by rocking it in a little bit. See, and there you go. Oh, there's where his curves start. So that point, and you can feel it on his head. You can run your finger up, and you go, okay, right there's where the comb or his head starts to leave the comb. So that's pretty much that area. You can take this whole area down completely bald if you want. That's going to be your shortest area if you are really trying to create that perfect square shape. Now sometimes there's other haircuts depending on trends. We may flare that out a little bit. A big thing in the 80s and 90s, you know, kind of a mushroom look. Totally optional. Sometimes that shape actually is a great haircut for any guys who are a little fuller in the neck or just have too much beard or whatever. If they have a full face and you want to slim that up a little bit, have their hair cut a little bit in a wedge form. Not too wedge, don't go totally 90s on us, but you know, almost that one thing. But that's an option for that. So once you find out and you kind of figure out that that's where your point is, then you're going to know, okay, I can come in with a zero blade and I can come all the way up to that point. Just a little bit below it is always a good measure, so it gives you a little more room. That's where you're going to start building that shape for whatever you're doing. Now with our clippers that we have today, I like to, every stylist or barber, you've got to have more than one pair of clippers. You should always have a backup, just for backup's sake, if something should happen. But you'll find as you start doing more minutes cuts, you'll like this clip a little more than that one, and probably end up with 4 or 5. I mean, you know, awesome, go for it. My two favorite clippers right now, I'm so excited that we finally come out in the industry. I know we've had cordless ones in the past before. I don't know if any of you guys have tried them. They don't always work that well in my experience, but this has been the best performing cordless clipper. It has a digital motor. It also has the motor by Ferrari, no joke. It's a real Ferrari electronic motor. It's the first thing they've ever done outside of the automotive industry, actually. But it is a digital motor. It's super fast, no high vibrations. The run time on this, if I just throw it in the chair and let it go, is about 3 hours. It won't stop. The full life motor is about 10,000 hours on this one. It's brushless. You don't have to change anything out. It's super duper simple. The only thing is it's a good idea to run it all the way down to 0 before you charge it back up. In fact, the first 3 cycles of this, you absolutely want to do that, or it's going to minimize the battery life. So don't forget that. It's in your instructions in the box. It says pretty boldly, especially the first charge, 12 hours. Don't touch it, don't use it. It's got to charge 12 hours. But that's all in your instructions for this one. It also has diamond-coated metallic blades. They'll never go dull. It's awesome. Also means they cut faster and they cut on wet hair. Now in wet hair, obviously you got to slow down a little bit because it's slippery, that goes without saying. But it will give you a lot of cutting. It also has 4 different settings from the closed blade position. It drops down 1, 2, 3. That makes, here's your first one actually, that's 1, 2, 3, 4. So it gives you a nice gauge when you are getting down into the shorter links and you're trying to do a little bit of fade on these. It's going to, when it's charged, it's going to be blue. It starts flashing red. Then you got probably about 2, maybe 3 haircuts left, depending on how much time you're taking on your haircuts. And then it'll flash really fast, and you got to plug it in pretty soon at that point. But one of my new favorite clippers for cordless. And so we're also using the BaByliss Pro. This is more of a standard barber style clipper, as you can tell. What I like better about this one, I like a little bit of weight in mine personally, but if not, this is super light. It's got 5 different settings on the blade. Really smooth, really easy, but there is a little bit of catch there so that you don't bump it and lose it. This has one of the first hybrid style motors, meaning it's got a rotary and it's got the digital motor in it. So this bad boy is fast, really, really fast. And it doesn't, you can feel the vibration is not super crazy. Alright, so we're going to start out with his hair. Basically, as far as basic clipping techniques go, it's always, and some people may teach this differently, but you want to start off longer to shorter for the most part. That's going to be a safer way to do it. Now, when you get your skills down and you're used to it, you can go all in between all day you want if you want to start from the shortest and work up. A few techniques are better for that. If you're going to go in and give yourself your guideline of how low the skin is going to be, then you can go in and do that first, and then come back in with the longest setting and start fading it down. That's a little safer way to do it, in my opinion. So, with any kind of length, we go in, we remove the bulk. Usually a 4 or 5, something like that will work. We're always going to start from the corners of his head. Now he has a pretty strong hairline. Let's see. If you're going to clip stuff out of the way, we usually come in about right here. Clip all that up out of the way if it's long, if you need to put it out of your way. Then you can start working removing your bulk with a number 4, 3. Now how many, I'm guessing, hopefully, maybe they don't teach this. You're an instructor, right, at the school? Okay. In cosmetology school, we're taught with clippers, and I'm not going to cut anything off yet, when we come up the head, I might hit something, we do this number. We learn that as we start fading, we come up. If you do this scooping rocking motion, and you have longer hair up here, you're just going to create another ledge for you to have to blend away, however how long that is. So if you've got all this pinned up and out of the way, you just want to come straight up that head. You don't want to follow the curve, unless of course we're just taking this all the way short and down, you know, soccer cut kind of haircut. If you're trying to build that shape, you want to be coming straight up. That's the motion. Those lines right there. This is the person's head. We're going to come straight up like that. We're not going to scoop out. The only time we start doing this scooping out or flicking motion is when we do get down into the really short links and we are trying to fade out a little bit of a line that may be left. So kind of forget that teaching that you had if you were to do scooping. I'm actually taking a little off. So if you look, I'm just kind of a scrubbing motion that I'm doing. Just straight up and down. It's not taking off much, but I'm kind of giving you an idea of what's happening. So we're going to pull this down. He's had a very customized haircut in the past. So I'm going to go ahead and... This is a number 3. When you come around the back, it's even if whatever you're doing, you want to always drop this down a little bit unless you're doing a real dramatic drop. It's always good to keep a little bit of length in that crown area. And then from here down, it goes 4, 3, 2, 1. So we go 4, 3, 2, 1 on the clippers. As we come in and take, if we were just trying to do an all-over taper, come now to a 2, do the same thing. We're going to come just a little bit lower, not much, than what we were, doing the same thing until we drop all the way down, and whatever length you want to go to if you're getting down to the number 1 guard. So what we're going to do with him, he's wanting a little customized high-low fade. There's all kind of names for stuff these days. I didn't know what that was. I do now that I saw a picture. There's variations of everything too. High-low fade can be 3 different styles or something. Have you ever heard of a Brooklyn fade? Ah, see? A Brooklyn fade is basically a low fade. It's a little more rounded and fuller because it tended to be more African American guys that had it, but it was closer skin. He wants to have a little higher side, right? So I'm kind of envisioning that we're probably going to fade this somewhere in this area. You still got to leave you a little bit of room to fade stuff. So I'm going to start with my initial skin area a little bit lower. That gives you a little insurance if you want to bring it up a little bit, because if you come up here, if I come up here and I cut it all the way up here, then I've got a very short amount of space to actually blend that in, and you probably, you could soften the line, but you wouldn't have a very gradual fade happening there. So I'm going to start a little bit lower. Forgive me, I am so thirsty this morning. The weather is something. Now, another thing for you guys that are a little less experienced, always ask and or feel your client's scalp for moles, for skin tags, or any sort of irregularities in the scalp that you may hit when you're dealing with this short of a length. Usually if they have something, they'll usually tell you.
You recommended to ask this question to the customers? You recommended to ask that
Absolutely.
question?
Always ask them. You can feel, before you ask, you can just feel. We're taught to do a scalp examination beforehand. Right? That's part of our beauty school training. Make sure they don't have any bugs, etc., etc. I didn't see any on this guy, so I proceeded. No, just kidding. He's got a super clean scalp. Another thing, you need a super clean scalp. If it's not, wash it, because grease will make hair stick too much. You may miss it, especially when it's fine hair. Tons of hair can stick together if it's not clean. When you're running up the scalp with this, you don't have to dig into it. You don't want to put too much pressure. It's going to be pretty uncomfortable for the client if you do that. But here's his head. You want to make that contact. You don't want to come in and tilt too far. It's not necessary. I mean, you can. That's when you're going to start getting a little irritation and scraping if you're not careful. But just enough pressure. And I can pretty much assure you that if you get a client who has really sensitive skin, they're going to tell you. They're going to let you know. Now I'm going a little bit out of the norm with this. Generally, you want to bring this around and start sloping a little bit just for a standard cut. I'm going to bring this around a little higher, a little further rather than I would, because we are going to kind of pull this down on him. So this is going to be our low side. Sorry guys, you might want to watch your feet. I might get a little crazy here on this. Hold on. I forgot I have hair color. This may happen. Where'd that towel go? Where's the white towel? Oh, here it is. Oh, now I'm going to get the 40 volume burn. Any questions you guys have along the way, please don't hesitate to interrupt me, because I don't want you to forget them.
¿Tienen alguna pregunta ya? ¿Todo bien? ¿So far? Okay.
Eduardo, yo tengo una pregunta. ¿Por qué las máquinas se calientan la blender?
Eso lo vemos después. Ahorita que entramos en el corte. Okay.
Es común que una máquina se caliente,
Pero se supone que no se la calienta.
la parte para que calienta el fósforo que se calienta cuando para que pones lo que la cuando ya no ve nada la
Now, optional, you guys can leave as sharp. If you're doing something more dramatic, you want a little more statement, you can pull this down low like that. You can go lower, you can go all the way down. Whatever you want to do, you know, it's your design. But generally speaking, with a typical basic even fade, I would probably go in about the height that we have here, and I would taper it down a little bit less of a point. I'd cut a little bit of that off right there, but not far from where that is. I'm actually going to raise him up just a little bit higher here. I like to always go back, make sure I've got everything short. This back of the nape area here, guys, that's where you really got to watch out for bumps, lumps, and whatever. You know, I can feel a little tiny something right there. That's okay. That's not gonna be cut off or bleed on us or anything. If you have something down here anywhere and you discover that it was after you cut into it, all you can do is go around it. You know, that's the best you can do. Even if it's on the neck and you're trying to trim off the neck here, you just go around it very carefully. Don't be afraid of it. A lot of guys have skin tags back here. Hold it out of the way. Use your finger as your guard. There's a hair growing on the skin tag. That happens sometimes. I just don't, you know, you just come close to it. It's a tough one. Alright, so that's our 0 guard there. open my blade up all the way. So I've almost got a 1. It's like a 0 3/4 at this point. And I'm just going to come in right where that fade is. This is where I'm going to start doing a little bitty rocking motion. Not the scooping motion like we were talking earlier on the longer links. Just a little bitty. I like to use both hands personally. That's not necessary. Whatever you feel comfortable with. But right now we're just going to take that little edge off first. We can come back and we can soften that line a little more. Or not, if you want to keep a little more of a line. I usually check with the client to see what their preference is. Now these clippers also